If you ask someone to name the biggest problem with streaming services right now, they'd probably say that there are just too many of them. I mean, not too long ago, just $8 a month was enough to gain access to unlimited entertainment. But now, let's say your comfort shows are Friends, How I Met Your Mother, and The Office. You would need 3 separate subscriptions just to cycle between them, not to mention the bundles and rising prices, and we're basically back to cable but on demand. But as much as it sucks, it was kind of inevitable. I mean, these studios have spent decades amassing legendary catalogs of shows and movies, so why would they want to share their profit if they can just strike out on their own? So while this was inevitable from, say, NBC or HBO, we're starting to see a trend of streaming services that are started by YouTubers.
Starting today, we are launching a subscription streaming service
to our very own independent streaming service, Watcher.
It's like Netflix, but worse.
And the reactions to this have been all over the place, from celebrated and beloved to possibly sinking a multi-million-dollar company.
Last Friday, we announced that we're leaving YouTube and launching our new streaming platform. We messed up.
Which leads one to wonder, why is this becoming more common? Why have the reactions been so widespread? And is this yet another step towards a world where content can no longer be free? Now, all of this, of course, revolves around YouTube. See, YouTube basically has a monopoly on creator-driven video content, to the point that any possible competitor has had to make their content very niche so that it can offer something YouTube isn't. And even then, YouTube has historically responded to this by just adding that form of content, having borrowed from TikTok, Twitch, Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat. But this monopoly exists thanks to, well, Google. As the owners of YouTube, Google has far more resources than any other competitor. Also, YouTube offers the most creator-friendly ecosystem, with far better monetization and long-term stability for creators than any of its competitors.
TikTok has gotten to the point where it is almost not worth it to make high-quality videos. You've almost certainly seen this video over here, which is currently sitting at 36.5 million views. Currently, I've made $1,800 from it. And my most recent video, 3 cents per 1,000 views. This has unfortunately gotten to the point where this is just not really sustainable.
So if you're someone who wants to produce long-form content, you basically have to use YouTube. But much like with any monopoly, that comes with problems. What if YouTube's methods of monetization are insufficient for what you wish to produce? Or what if YouTube's advertisers disapprove of your style of content? Not to mention that the production values and budgets of YouTube videos have only gone up.
Every day the 2 of you survive in this wilderness, I'll give you $10,000.
I hope you brought enough money, man. We're here for the long run.
And all of this has led to some creators wanting to cut YouTube out of the equation, starting with college humor. You see, YouTube largely got its start with short, easy to digest videos, so sketch comedy quickly dominated the platform, with names like Fred, Smosh, Ryan Higa, Shane Dawson, and of course College Humor leading that charge. And College Humor in particular found a lot of success, basically becoming YouTube's version of SNL, with a large-scale production, private studio, and revolving door cast of up-and-coming comedians who would both write and perform. But since then, YouTube has changed in 2 major ways. First, as they became a mainstream distributor of videos, any content deemed unsafe became less and less viable because YouTube was beholden to advertisers.
A bunch of advertisers fearing backlash removed their ads entirely from YouTube, and during this period, every YouTuber saw a decrease in revenue. Also, Google's valuation dropped by like $750 million in a day.
No big.
But because YouTube is so large, this is all automated and wildly inaccurate at times. For example, one of my videos was decimated by YouTube for featuring graphic self-harm, but in reality, it was about Logan Paul's past scams. It just so happened that the word for taking one's own life was said a few times because of a previous incident of his. This is why across platforms, you see creators having to make asses of themselves by dancing around unpleasant words like I just did. Because the alternative is putting in dozens, if not hundreds of man-hours into content for nothing in return. But secondly, YouTube began to reward watch time over, well, clickbait. Meaning, if you get people to click your videos but not stick around and watch, you would make less money and get fewer views. So now YouTube is all about some sellouts trying to squeeze in more and more mid-roll ads. If you have YouTube Premium, I just played a mid-roll ad there, implying that I too am a sellout. But while this discouraged the insincere clickbait that YouTube was infamous for, it also punished shorter videos, particularly sketches. So sketches that required multiple people on payroll to produce just weren't feasible anymore. Enter Dropout.
How do we produce the shows we want and you want without watering them down for advertisers or networks? The answer is by going straight to you. Today we're announcing Dropout, our new subscription service.
Yes, Dropout marked the start of what was once College Humor transitioning into its own streaming service. And while College Humor was known for tightly scripted content, Dropout became known for various shows that were unscripted, ranging from Dungeons & Dragons
Say hi, Intrepid Heroes.
to improv-based game shows.
The part of the Oscars where they show a clip from each movie and then cut to that actor.
Next, we have John Hamm in Pretty Little Liars.
Get hot, attractive, and lie.
And while the cast of the old sketches would be the foundation of these shows, the sketches themselves were slowly phased out as ownership of the company transitioned from corporations to Sam Reich.
I started running College Humor's video team 10 years ago when I looked like this. Gross.
And throughout this transition, Sam maintained a very popular level of transparency for why these decisions have been made.
And we're working hard to make that version of the company cool as hell. Not to mention patient, ethical, and responsible. College Humor was a brand founded nearly 25 years ago by Ricky Van Veen and Josh Abramson, largely because the .com was available. But after dropping out of College Humor, dropping out of advertising, dropping out of corporate America, the name Dropout somehow feels more appropriate.
Something sorely lacking from other streaming services, highlighted by the recent Hollywood strikes.
Not to mention better than certain other multi-billion-dollar streamers.
I'm being paid $500 just to say this line.
Thank you, Iffy. Iffy's going home because we want to be respectful of his time.
In fact, Sam was publicly compliant with the strikes as they went on, despite being the exact kind of person who should be against them, publicly sharing his efforts to ensure that while his team have been satisfied with their compensation, he will collaborate with the unions to not make content that crosses the picket line. But now, Dropout is beloved, with strong followings across social media and collaborations with mainstream celebrities, such as Matt Mercer, Wayne Brady, and Howie Mandel. So when you combine the focus on being liberated from corporate censorship,
Sure, we get advertisers on College Humor, but advertisers rarely want to make the same stuff we do. That's why we got into TV, to make bigger, better shows. But on TV, we answer to the networks, and the networks answer to, you guessed it, Chomsky's potato chips.
with Sam Reich's focus on making the platform serve their talent rather than suits,
I can leave now, right?
I want to be respectful of your time.
Good.
not to mention that they're aiming to pay their talent residuals despite streaming services not being required to, and it's hardly a surprise that Dropout has been received so well. So 6 years later, two channels decided to follow in those footsteps, the Try Guys and Watcher. And for one, this decision has marked a huge step forward for the company, while for the other, it might be what leads to their demise. Now luckily, both Watcher and the Try Guys share basically the same exact story. The faces of these channels were some of the breakout stars of BuzzFeed Video's heyday, and were best known for various nonfiction series that would consistently go viral. So when they grew too large of a following to justify being restricted to just employees of a corporation, they left and continued producing content on their own.
We're back, baby, and welcome to our brand new channel.
Watcher is a new production studio that Ryan, Shane, and myself came together to create because we wanted to make high quality content for the internet, for streaming platforms, for the world, and we wanted a place where we could do it on our terms.
And in the time since, they've both grown to rather large-scale production companies, continuously expanding the kind of content that they're providing as well as their staffs.
Can you talk about how many employees you have?
We have 20 something. And we say something because we have a lot of freelancers as well.
My proudest moments have been being able to hire incredible people. So growing our staff from 3 to 6 to 10 to 20, 25.
Then they both announced their intentions of launching their own streaming services, with Watcher on April 19th, 2024, and the Try Guys just a month later on May 22nd. Now all three of these announcements shared a key idea, that YouTube was no longer able to fully support the visions of these creatives.
You start to realize, like, hey, maybe television shows aren't meant for YouTube. Perhaps we should find a different place that's better suited to the content that we're making.
Without any corporations, networks, or advertisers to muck it up.
Lots of creators benefit from that algorithm. We have benefited from the algorithm. But as the algorithm changes, if you don't change with it, you will not get surfaced, which means you won't even see our videos on your homepage.
However, the reception to these announcements have been all over the place. I mean, Dropout has become a universally beloved streaming platform, while Watcher didn't.
We messed up.
So why? Well, there was one key difference between Watcher's approach from the Try Guys and Dropout. See, Dropout and the Try Guys were aiming to supplement the content they were making on YouTube. So if you didn't pay for the service, your experience would go unchanged or maybe even improved.
Look, I get it. A lot of you aren't going to want to pay for this, and that's fine. We'll still be releasing all of the free videos we normally do. In fact, we'll be releasing more, many free episodes of our new shows, for instance. So this should be a win-win for everyone.
Now, we're not leaving YouTube.
You're still gonna get all the free stuff you're used to seeing right here. But on second try, you're gonna get early access to old favorites.
Ooh, uncensored content that YouTube won't allow.
Oh, exclusive new stuff just for you!
While Watcher, I mean, they literally titled their announcement, Goodbye YouTube.
But at the same time, this is our final goodbye to YouTube. You'll still occasionally see us on YouTube. We're gonna post trailers for our shows there. We're gonna have the season premieres of all of our series on there. But if you wanna watch the full seasons of all of our content, the streamer will be the exclusive home for all of that starting May 31st.
And not only that, their announcement implied that their entire archive of content would be taken off of YouTube, including past uploads.
Yeah, the beta will be a transitional period where you'll still be able to access content on YouTube, but beginning May 31st, you'll need to become a member of our streaming service to access full seasons and new releases.
Which Watcher later claims was never the intention, but either way, the shows that were up until this point free on YouTube would be placed behind a paywall, leaving their YouTube as just a place for them to put season premieres. And it makes a lot of sense that the Try Guys took such a similar approach to Dropout, considering they were in direct contact with Sam Reich in order to ensure they didn't mess this up.
I want to give credit in every interview at least once to Dropout because I think they paved the way for their this model. Sam Reich was extremely gracious in giving us his learnings and say, hey, here's what we got right, here's what we messed up.
And crucially, the Try Guys stated that all series that have been released on YouTube would continue to be. They would just be released a little earlier on their streaming service.
And if YouTube is still the best way for you to watch us, we get it. So all the shows you're used to seeing here will still be here.
All of our shows will still be here, sometimes a little later, sometimes a lot later.
And only their new series would be locked behind the paywall. And all of this worked. I mean, even with them announcing at the same time that Eugene was leaving the channel, the reception has been a pretty positive one, with the most scathing sentiment being, this seems unnecessary, but hey, I could just stick to YouTube, so no harm done. So only Watcher faced universal backlash, but why? Lots of production companies put their content behind a paywall, so why would it be a problem now? Well, with content creators, there's very much a mindset that they are personally indebted to their viewers. And on some levels, that's a pretty fair take. If you become a millionaire from producing free content, it means that came exclusively from viewers supporting you. It's kind of the same mindset of rewarding your loyal customers, but in this case, your customers are paying you with their time. It's the same reason that many YouTuber controversies are taken very harshly by viewers. It's seen as almost a personal betrayal, especially if someone was found to abuse the power that their viewers gave them in the first place. So in the case of Watcher, they were able to break away from a corporation and build a successful company completely due to the committed support of their viewers. And they basically rewarded that by waiting until they got big enough so that they could immediately lock those viewers out of watching their content. And it was made even worse by the specific actions of the group. For one, they downplayed the monthly cost by saying that it was something everyone could afford.
You can become a member of Watcher for $5.99 a month or $59.99 a year.
We want to keep the price low enough where anybody and everybody is able to afford it.
And considering how we're at a time where most young people are struggling financially,
our rent prices are up, our insurance prices are up, our food prices are up, our gas prices are up, our baby food prices are up, everything is up!
And these people are clearly well off thanks to their viewers.
I actually own a company that specializes in putting brands with YouTubers and running ads for major YouTube channels. It's called Mana Talent Group. So I know what these deals look like. I would wager a guess that each brand that appears in their content is paying between $15,000 and $35,000 a piece. I saw a few people defending them saying like, no, they have 25 employees. I have more than 25 employees and I'm able to finance all of that completely fine through streaming. And my streaming numbers are nowhere near as lucrative as their Patreon numbers. It's not even close. Theirs blows me out of the water.
That really rubbed people the wrong way, to the point that Watcher later had to acknowledge this moment directly.
We also want to deeply apologize for our ignorance around the impact of the cost. We regret stating and implying that it's a price that anybody can afford, and we fully acknowledge that it is not. We didn't take the proper consideration for how this cost would affect you, and hope you know that we are taking this as a serious learning experience.
And throughout their announcement, Watcher's attitude almost feels like they think they're doing their viewers a favor by paywalling their content.
As sad as it is to say goodbye to YouTube, it's the right thing to do.
But you know, all this to say, you'll still occasionally see us on YouTube. We're gonna post trailers for our shows there. We're gonna have the season premieres of all of our series on there. But if you wanna watch the full seasons of all of our content, the streamer will be the exclusive home for all of that starting May 31st.
Steven, talk about money.
What a weird, wonderful idea.
What a weird, wonderful idea that would be. Which is why I think our content doesn't necessarily always like trend. We've trended quite a few times, okay? But that's never, that's never our goal. And I think by that token, YouTube has never been like the perfect fit for us.
First of all, bigger and better content.
And when they talk about how they understand if you stop watching their content now, it comes off as them thinking they'd have the right to be mad at you, but are being the bigger people.
In all seriousness, we really couldn't be more excited for you guys to join us on this next chapter, hopefully. We'd love for you guys to come along with us. But at the same time, this is our final goodbye to YouTube. And if it's our goodbye to you, I hope it's not, but if it is, I do want to say thank you for supporting us all along the way.
Like, it just feels like it lacks any humility. Whereas with Dropout, Sam Reich has maintained a pretty self-deprecating tone when talking about the price.
It's like Netflix, but worse and cheaper. Look, I get it. A lot of you aren't going to want to pay for this, and that's fine. We'll still be releasing all of the free videos we normally do. In fact, we'll be releasing more, many free episodes of our new shows, for instance. So this should be a win-win for everyone. But for those of you who do subscribe, we'll be working tirelessly to make it worth your while.
If you like College Humor and want to support us, sign up for Dropout. For the low price of 0.005% of my student loan debt, sign up for your free trial today. Then pay after that. I need it.
If you like College Humor and want to support us, sign up for Dropout for the low price of a whole lot of straws per month.
And what makes this even worse is that one of their founders, Shane, has made several anti-capitalist remarks in the past.
Essentially, no victims here, aside from the rich people they stole from, which, hey, look, steal from the rich, do it.
You're a Robin Hood.
Be Robin Hood. You're stealing from largely, the rich? So yeah, whatever, steal from them, I don't care.
Is stealing bad? Probably.
Depends who from. I'll tell you when Gen Z starts lopping people's heads off.
Lopping people's heads off? Why would they do it? Why?
They're gonna.
For what reason?
For many reasons, Ryan.
I'm missing something
here?
Yeah,
I'm just telling you, we're on the menu.
And even in their announcement, he struck some as being uncomfortable with this decision.
And look, you can share it, with your friends.
That's true.
What are we gonna do?
So that also just rubbed people the wrong way. Like, Dropout's channel did eventually stop posting sketches, yes, but it was because of the aforementioned costs of making that content. It wasn't viable at all, so they eventually stopped producing them after they had to change ownership. That is very different from them taking the sketches and locking them behind a paywall. Also, both Dropout and the Try Guys have emphasized that this change would allow them to showcase a much more diverse cast.
The algorithm is not going to serve someone else's face in a thumbnail with a title with someone else's name doing something that we don't do.
Now, one of our long-term goals has always been to use the privilege of our platform to expand into a wider cast of diverse voices.
So we like to think that we're not really losing Eugene, but we're gaining so many more perspectives that deserve the opportunity to shine.
As YouTube's current algorithm often punishes channels that try to post multiple formats with multiple hosts. Take the Theorist channels, who used to have a slate of multiple shows running, but now only have their flagship on each of their channels. While yes, channels like Smosh Pit have shown that it can work, it took quite a while for that to start paying off and is far from guaranteed.
So, here's when Smosh Pit actually got to a place where I thought it wasn't going to be around much longer. It was not getting good views around this time. So they wanted a show of like every genre on one YouTube channel.
Or every personality. That's kind of what I was thinking.
You were kind of right, but that stretched this channel apart, and it was all so different that it wasn't getting good views because it wasn't like a consistent place, and it was like, what do you come to this channel for?
But with Watcher, it feels more like a way to make more money and give some of their friends shows in the process.
The advent of this streamer has allowed me to bring the gang back together.
That's true.
Adam,
your pals.
Andrew, the old friends from Worth It.
And while yes, this ultimately would help fund their videos, one of their series is literally them getting to experience bougie living since the rest of us can't.
What word can you use to describe that? Exclusive. We just got to do something very few people ever get the chance to do. $24,000 airplane seat.
That's what Worth It is.
Yeah.
You get to play in the playground of life.
A series that they're specifically relaunching on this platform.
That's true.
Adam,
your pals.
Andrew, the old friends from Worth It, and we're going to be launching the spiritual successor
which is going to be called Travel Season.
Also, they have a team of over 24 people, but they don't produce large-scale content that often, especially compared to YouTube channels with similar setups like the Try Guys. Hell, Watcher even said that they were going to start making their productions international.
But we'll also be able to take bigger swings and go international, like we're going to the UK and we're going to Scotland.
Which you could argue is you paying for them to travel the world, since they're unlikely to spend every second working.
Welcome to Travel Season!
The show where every season we travel somewhere new.
This time, we're going all the way to Seoul, South Korea.
To eat and experience as much as we can.
But most of all, do what we want to do.
And they already had a successful Patreon where they were crowdfunding their content, which yes, the Try Guys did too, but in the case of Watcher, the Patreon originally would not grant you access to their streaming service, meaning you would be funding content you weren't even allowed to see.
We also want to directly address our Patreon community, who have played such a key role in supporting us from the very beginning. All current Patreon members will receive a free subscription code to the platform. If you already purchased a subscription, please contact us and we will issue you a full refund.
And while a lot of these points are, yes, rooted in speculation by the public, all that matters with an announcement like this is how people feel about it. And this all contributed to the negative reception that we've seen. But there is one more part of this that, in my opinion, made this even worse. Like I mentioned, when creators go against their audience, it feels much more personal since that audience more directly contributed to their rise. And with Dropout, they seem to love the space they're occupying. Like they always have seemed very proud of their roots as an online company.
You shared the videos, spread the word, made some really compelling fan cams. And you saved us. It's taken a lot of luck, good timing, and viral TikTok game changer clips.
But believe me, we wake up in a sense of stunned and bewildered gratitude every day.
And it's demonstrated by the talent they showcase. They tend to be undiscovered up-and-comers who very often end up with their own show on the network.
2 weeks after I found out I was a cast member, they were like, hey, we're launching a thing called Dropout. Everyone needs to make a show. Which, if you've been trying to make a show your whole life, people coming to you like, hey, you really need to
put a show together. You're like, I got 8.
And when they do have mainstream guest stars, it feels like a natural collaboration rather than a desperate attempt at seeming legit. And the same can largely be said about the Try Guys. While they do venture into other forms of media, they seem very happy with being online creators. Hell, when Zach talks about how he almost left the company at one point, his reasons had nothing to do with creating online content.
For me, it was feeling like our company was moving into a direction where I couldn't make things that I enjoyed. I felt that the success of the company hinged on continuing to play the song over and over again, and I was sick of that song. Then the world blew up and I found a way to make it my creative identity again.
Hell, even when announcing that Eugene would be leaving the Try Guys, Eugene went out of his way to clarify that he wanted to move on to projects that were different, but not better.
My primary passions are writing and directing in the film and literary spaces, and that has never changed. And to hope to achieve any success in those spaces, gosh, it requires a lifetime of commitment. While yes, these projects are time consuming, I haven't necessarily prioritized them because I view the digital space as somehow beneath them. This simply isn't the right space for me.
But why am I bringing all of this up? Well, it's because when it comes to Watcher, man, their taglines always mention how they're making television caliber content that is released online.
Everyone has different missions they're marching towards on YouTube. Ours was to make a television show. The goal was always to make television caliber quality content.
It's the television caliber content that you know and love.
And we feel adheres to a certain level of quality that you would find on, say, a Netflix or something like that.
Usually you're probably used to receiving television caliber quality content from us, but wouldn't you like to be on TV?
Not quite TV.
It's close enough.
It's close enough.
Put television caliber.
Television caliber perhaps, but TV, not quite yet.
Which kind of insinuates that traditional media is superior. Like, Watcher feels much more like a group that wishes they could produce for television, so they think they're doing the internet a favor by gracing us with their presence.
We kind of wrote down the mission statement of just, we want to make a studio or a platform where we could make unscripted television caliber content on the internet. And to that point, nobody had quite done that. Full-blown developed shows had not been kind of a thing on YouTube to that point.
And if you remember, people started crunching numbers and hypothesizing that Watcher's financial needs stem from mismanaged funds more than anything else. And I think it's this rather arbitrary commitment of theirs that demonstrates just how true that is. Like, producing content for television is much more expensive than for the internet. And generally speaking, spending more on online videos is going to come with a diminishing return really quickly. Like, while doing this video, I've come across tons of Watcher fans expressing expressing that they were satisfied with, or possibly even preferred, the group style on BuzzFeed when they had a lower budget, because most of what draws people to the majority of creators has nothing to do with production value. Instead, many are drawn to YouTube specifically because it feels more authentic and less elitist than traditional media. And I think that's the issue with their television caliber approach. Tons of YouTube companies go on to explore the television space, but their primary form of content remains tailor-made for the internet. Whereas Watcher is so determined to jam a triangle block through a square hole by basing their entire company on a method of production and distribution that will always be at odds with each other. And rather than pull themselves closer to the YouTube side of the production spectrum, they decided it was everyone else who needed to adapt or else.
And when you add that all up, we're talking about an end of a season that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm not sitting here complaining that is the bed we've made. Everyone has different missions they're marching towards on YouTube. Ours was to make a television show. And, you know, over time, you start to realize like, hey, maybe television shows aren't meant for YouTube. Perhaps we should find a different place that's better suited to the content that we're making and can support the dollar amount that we're putting into each of these episodes.
And that quote from Ryan honestly shows that there was yet another note that watchers should have been taking from Dropout. When they realized that their main style of content was no longer viable online, they transitioned into content that was. And those aren't the only notes watchers should have taken from other YouTube companies. I mean, just compare the content on their main channel compared to similar productions. Like, of the last 52 of the Try Guys' main videos, all of them are large-scale productions that require either shooting on location or dedicated sets. Things that independent creators couldn't dream of doing without a team.
There are 5 major theme parks in Southern California, and today we're gonna try and hit all of them in a single day.
But with Watcher's last 52 uploads, roughly 35% of them are commentary videos, 15% are gaming let's plays, 10% are trailers and announcements, and only 40% are large-scale productions that require a crew. So half of this channel is composed of formats that solo creators have long since been doing in their bedrooms. And hey, on some level, this strategy does make sense. Channels often mix in easy, cost-effective productions to space out and finance larger and more expensive projects. That's why basically every big creator does a podcast. And yes, Watcher has struggled to find their footing with podcasting, but they still maintained an incredibly successful Patreon. And that 50% of videos that are supposed to be cost-effective are really overproduced in my opinion. What do I mean? Well, just look at this one video of theirs where they wear Santa costumes and get drunk while reading fan-submitted stories. I want you to take a guess as to how many people worked on this video. Just 2 dudes drinking and laughing. Now, whatever number you're thinking, it's higher because they have 19 people listed as contributing to this video. They have a director and a separate director of photography, an editor, an assistant editor, and a post-production supervisor, not to mention 2 production assistants and 2 separate people taking care of the lighting. Also, the director, creator, producer, and production coordinator are all different people. Do I understand that these people are probably working on multiple projects every week? Yes, but there is no world where you can convince me that it takes almost 20 people to record 2 guys getting drunk in Santa outfits. But you know what? Let's be charitable. That was part of a night where they filmed a batch of 4 videos using this crew. Maybe they're generally more restrained. Okay, let's take a random video just about them ranking their top 5 fictional dads. Oh look, their scoreboards are just modified whiteboards. That's a great start. So it's a good thing that for the crew, they only needed 11 people to make it. What about one where it's just 2 of them playing a video game? Yeah, that only took them 15 people. And so you may be wondering, what kind of alternative could I be suggesting? Well, just look at their podcast channel. They only have 2 people credited, a producer and an editor. And I'm sorry, but there is enough overlap between commentary videos and podcasts that I just don't understand how you can pay so many people to record you talking in place. And look, it's well produced, yes, but when their main complaint is a lack of money, this doesn't help the perception of the issue stemming from mismanaged finances. Like, this arbitrary commitment to cosplaying as a TV production makes the cost like double what it could be in order to improve the content by maybe 10%. It's the kind of thing where you would expect Watcher to make cuts in these places first before taking the bizarre approach they opted for. And like I said before, whether or not that's true kind of doesn't matter since we're talking about image, about how people see them, and I'm not alone in this sentiment. In fact, there's a really interesting piece of evidence to suggest this arbitrary idea of being television caliber popular actually bit them in the ass, to the point that they might actually be phasing out that phrase altogether. You see, since their Patreon launched in 2020, the tagline has been creating television caliber unscripted series just for you. And according to the Wayback Machine, this remained unchanged until at least 10 days after the launch of their streaming service. However, the tagline now reads where curiosity meets comedy. And this might sound unimportant, but in times of a PR crisis, I can't imagine them rolling out changes to their branding unless it was actively hurting the brand. And if this change was planned in advance, I would expect the tagline to change either when they adjusted their tiers or when they launched their streaming service, not so long after the fact. And given the overwhelmingly negative reception, we're talking ukulele apology numbers, any guesses what their next upload was?
We messed up.
And we're sorry for the way we handled this, as well as the way we communicated it.
With that in mind, we're making some changes to ensure that there's a way for our community to continue watching our content for free.
If you want to watch our shows early and ad-free, you can catch them on the Watcher platform a month earlier. After that, you'll be able to watch our shows on YouTube for free.
And if you ask me, it's pretty understandable that their viewers were this outraged. Their support freed this creative group from a corporation, only for them to turn around and become, well, a corporation that openly pines for the chance to be considered on the level of television instead of stinky old YouTube. And here's my thing. Do I think that a modified version of this plan might have eventually made sense for this group? Yeah, actually I do. But at just 3 million subscribers, you are that confident that you have a large enough following to make more off of a paid model than a free one with crowdfunding options. Like 3 million's a lot, don't get me wrong, but in the greater YouTube ecosystem, that's not really that huge anymore. Especially not to the point where you'd think this kind of move was a good idea. Like generally speaking, if they had 10 million long-form subscribers, then yeah, I could see it, but man, 3 million is not that crazy for a channel that's run by a whole company these days. It just feels like this was very premature. Like they don't have Try Guys or College Humor numbers, so I don't know. Like this is a very general comparison, but Dropout has nearly 15 million subscribers and was consistently hitting millions of views when launching Dropout TV. Yet after 5 years in August of 2023, they had less than 1 million paid subscribers, most of whom enrolled during that year. So in the case of Watcher, which is a much less established brand, I can't help but feel that maybe they should have been grinding a little longer before considering a move like this. I also think it says a lot that the Try Guys collaborated with Dropout to make this happen, but I can't find any source of Watcher making a similar claim. And look, I don't know these people, I'm not important, I don't have insider contacts. I have a YouTube rep, was I supposed to get a YouTube rep? But is this just inevitable? Are streaming services the way of the future? Yeah, no, obviously not. Look, I do get that, yeah, some goals for content creation don't mesh with YouTube. That is totally fair. Like, I personally don't bother with short form content because what it offers doesn't align with what I want to do. So it does make sense that some productions want to expand to also include content funded by their fans. But at the same time, the circumstances where this would make sense are so specific that I don't see this model taking off. Dropout really feels like a lightning in a bottle kind of situation, where the timing of College Humor being shut down and sketch comedy no longer being viable, not to mention Sam having a bunch of talented comedians in sudden need of work on speed dial, it just made a subscription model make sense. Like, I've subscribed to Dropout on my own at times because the improv shows are just really good. Not to mention the fact that them being unscripted shows on closed sets make them much easier to produce in mass. Like, there's really only one kind of subscription model for YouTubers that makes any kind of sense to me, and it's a model that's been around for years, which basically involves incorporating a paid subscription into being a member of basically that group's super fan club, which allows larger productions to expand while still making their home platform their base of distribution. And in return, these superfans get extra content. Because yeah, monthly subscriptions can certainly help these creators diversify and expand their companies, but other than Watcher taking it to a weird extreme, this idea is nothing new. The main difference now is that creators want to do so more on their terms without relying on platforms that take a large cut like Patreon or YouTube. Ultimately, Watcher needs to look at the culture that's been established on YouTube instead of focusing on what they wished it would be.
Twitch has managed to perfectly gamify monetization for their streamers with things like sub badges, emotes, hype trains, a lot of things that YouTube has tried to mimic, but the culture is just not there. People expect a free experience on YouTube.
While Twitch viewers may be more satisfied with helping to pay a streamer's bills, the YouTube audience expects creators to run their business well enough to make ends meet on their own. Any money a YouTuber receives directly from their community is seen as the viewer going the extra mile rather than doing the bare minimum. So the exchange needs to feel like the creators going above and beyond in return. This is why channels like Smosh, Critical Role, Mythical, and the Try Guys face little to no pushback in launching subscriptions. You can ignore them for no loss. Like, there's a reason why Watcher defaulted to that exact model after experiencing the outrage. I mean, at the end of the day, Watcher seriously underestimated how ingrained this idea is in YouTube's culture. But after how disastrous that mistake was for them, I can't imagine such harsh subscription models from YouTubers becoming commonplace. If anything, it just feels like the ongoing trend of everything being subscription-based finally expanding to content creation, but it's an industry where I can't imagine that panning out in most cases. So I think it's only going to be a very small portion of channels, ones that are large-scale productions with ensemble casts, that would even consider this. Though I can definitely see like out-of-touch corporations trying to form like streaming networks of independent creators, like Commentary TV, but I don't see the vast majority actually joining them because the idea is just so out of touch. Like, YouTubers don't even like joining networks anymore, and those used to be considered a no-brainer. But you know who's almost as out of touch as corporations? That's right, YouTubers. So I'm happy to announce that I'm going to be assembling the streaming service of ex-YouTubers. And I think the name should be pretty obvious, right? Ex-YouTubers making videos? Say hello to xvideos.com. Brotherhood, friendship, family, a real human vulnerability unlike anything you'd find elsewhere. And hey, we're not afraid of letting groups shine. All of this and more can be found at xvideos.com. Join today for the low price of $59.99 a month, a price that anyone can afford. Though now that I think about it, that URL might get confused with another website, right? I mean, obviously I'm talking about Twitter because now they're known as X and they're starting to prioritize videos, so I don't want any problems with the URL, you know? But don't worry, I'm sure I can come up with something that's just perfect. Aw, man.